Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
And I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
As if I started on mute. Big introduction, and I'm just out on mute at the beginning of the show. Serves me right, you know. Welcome back, Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Day 2. Today at the test. My name is Machel, St. Patrick Cute, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. By now, you should know who I am. Or you should know who we are. You should know everything about this podcast. I don't know if I need to even do an introduction because I'd like to think that the large majority of people in here already know about us. But if you don't, you can see the ticker tape at the bottom. Like, share, subscribe, help us on the road to 5K. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Carib Cricket. Look at the ticker tape, people, at Carib Cricket on Twitter and Instagram. We just hit 10.7K. on Twitter, so 10,700 followers. Big up anybody who got us to the 10.7k mark. Keep on pressing that follow button, etc. If you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, if you're live in this chat, you can do a super chat if you so feel fit. Just send us 99 cents or 99p or whatever your currency is. It all adds up, to be fair. Or you can become a patron. Sorry, where's that one? www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket for as little as £2, etc., $2, whatever it might be. You can support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast and keep us on the air because we still don't have a sponsor. After 3 years of doing this, we still have no sponsor whatsoever. Somebody in the Caribbean actually needs to sponsor us, though. For real, someone actually needs to sponsor us. We're out here, you know, giving the people what they want, all the interviews, Anyways, let's get into it. Grind ball, people. Grind ball 2023. 2022 was the year of Bazball. 2023 is going to be the year of grind ball. We saw, Tagenarine Chanderpaul get his long-awaited debut at the back end of 2022 in Australia. And anybody who's got a keen cricket eye would have seen enough in Australia to know that this guy can bat. And actually, I'm going to start with Tage, but let's start with the scorecard first things first. So West Indies started the day on, I can't even remember what we started the day on. Most of the day got rained out, so we only had an hour before tea, and then obviously the 2 hours before the close of play. Only 38 overs were bowled in the day due to a wet outfield. It didn't actually rain at all today, but the conditions overnight meant that the outfield was they had to put like significant amount of sawdust. They had to wait for it to dry out. Yeah, Frank says we're 112 overnight. Anyways, we ended the day on, where's the scorecard gone? We ended the day on 221 without loss. Craig Brathwaite, his 12th test match century, 116 not out from 246 balls. And Tagenarine Chanderpaul, his first test century, 101 not out from 291 balls. It's worth pointing out the strike rates. Craig's strike rate 47.15 by the end of the day's play, and Tagenarine's 34.70. None of that is a surprise. I think if you study certainly if you study what Craig has done throughout his test career, that's just, in fact, that's above average for Craig, you would say, the 47. Strike rate of 47, given most of his situations. Whereas for Tage, that's about in par with what we see in domestic cricket. I know Tage has improved his range of strokes over the last year or so, but generally speaking, in terms of his approach to red ball cricket, that's about par for Tagenarine. So the match is set up, even though we lost like however many overs or have lost however many overs in the test match so far, it's still set up. 221 without loss. Tage and Craig could well go on to set a record tomorrow if I can't remember what the score is they have to get past. Is it 278? They have to get past from Haynes and Greenwich to set a West Indies record for an opening test match partnership. They could well go on to do it. But tomorrow, primarily is all about setting a target for Zimbabwe to put them under significant scoreboard pressure so that over the remaining 2 days, we have a chance of taking 20 wickets. The pitch looks flat like a pancake. It looks dead and flat like a pancake. But the best way forward I can foresee. So if we're on 2-2-1, where's my pen? 2-2-1. Sorry, people, I'm doing my quick maths. It should not be inconceivable that over the course of the day's play, they make 271 runs. That would take them to 500. So 271 runs in the day's play should take them to 500. And I would. This is the ideal scenario, and they declare at the end of day 3. This is assuming we even get a fool's day play. Even if we don't get a full day's play, the bare minimum they should be reaching before they declare is 450. I would accept them declaring on 450 and giving themselves half an hour at the end of day 3 to have a bowler at Zimbabwe. So the way to set up the match is pretty straightforward. Get 450 plus and try and bowl them out twice on day 4 and day 5. I'm not convinced they can because I don't know. That pitch don't look like it's got any kind of zip in it. So really what you're looking at then is how much can Gudakesh Motie and Roston Chase come into the equation in terms of you potentially taking advantage of any spin that may be on offer. The other person to look at would be Alzarri Joseph, because Alzarri Joseph will be the only pacer or only bowler, in fact, in the entire match on both sides who has the ability to crank it up at 90 plus. So Alzarri will come into effect in terms of his ability to unsettle the Zimbabwean batters because of his sheer pace. But effectively for me, that's the match. That's how the match should be set up tomorrow, if we even get any significant amount of play to try and force any kind of result. I'm not here to hear anybody saying Tage and Craig have batted too slow. As I've always maintained, and I said it quite a lot in 2022 when we beat England and when we beat Bangladesh, when you are a side as weak as the West Indies, and I say this with respect, but when you are a side as weak as the West Indies in Test cricket, the first thing you do, no matter the opposition, is make sure you can't lose. We aren't in a position yet as a Test nation where we can just be going out there and saying we're going to just dominate this Test from ball 1. Even against Zimbabwe, we're not yet in that kind of position. So the first thing you do is you say, you know what? We're going to bat ourselves into a position where it's impossible to lose. It's impossible to lose this Test match. That's why we didn't lose against England, by the way. That's why we beat England, because those first 2 Test matches against England, which everyone has forgotten last year, England were actually the better side, but we were able to bat ourselves into positions where it was impossible for England to win, right? Or very, very hard for England to win. And then when we licked them down in Grenada, they could do nothing about it. So my whole thing is make sure you can't lose first. So I'm not here to hear Craig's batted too slow or Taja's batted too slow. They're setting the match up. It's all about now what happens on day 3. And fundamentally, Raymond Reefer, Jermaine Blackwood, and Carl Mayers have license to just attack. If they get out, they get out, but they've got license to attack. Even Jason Holder, I forgot Roston Chase's name. Even Jason Holder and Roston Chase have license to attack. The platform has been set, so they can come out and play a one-day innings, or even if they want to, they can play a T20 innings. I'm not really fussed, just as long as by the end of day 3, weather permitting, we've got to 450 plus, and that is the game set up. Let me see what any comments are saying about that. Let me go into some comments to see what people are saying. Frank Lucas says it's crazy. I've seen barely any West Indies fans complain about strike rates, only the commentary. Oh, sugar, my work emails are on. Let me close this, people. I haven't heard anything about commentary. What's wrong with the commentary, people? Talk to me. I haven't really picked up on anything to do with the commentary. Javid, where's Javid? Javid says it's up to Zimbabwe to get the opening batsman out. Yep, completely. Craig and Tage are just doing what they can do, you know? Like I say, setting the match up. What other comments have we got? FPL Bailey says, declare before tea and try to grab a few before close of play. Yep, that's ideal. if the weather allows us to. That's the ideal situation. 007 says day 5 will rain. I haven't looked at the weather update. It didn't rain today. Everyone said it was going to rain today. Raining today wasn't the issue. It was the wet outfield overnight. So I don't know if we can go by weather forecast per se. Who else have we got? Yeah, Javon says the pitch is hard to accelerate on. That's what Craig and even Tage. I was listening to Tage's post-match press conference, and he said the pitches mimic what they see in the Caribbean, low, slow, and he was like, it's hard to get going. He says you just got to get yourself in and just put away any bad balls you get. So I think he was implying that it's not a pitch where there's fluent stroke making can happen. We'll soon see, because obviously once Tage or Craig get out, one of the two of them will know by what Reefer, Blackwood, and Mayers do by just how fluent it is or isn't to play a free-flowing innings. Jay says, where can I watch it? If you're in the UK, go to icc.tv and you can watch it for free on the ICC website. You have to create an account though, Jay. 007 says Mayers would be the best to accelerate on this pitch. If you equate it to what he did in Bangladesh, then yes. J. Luke says bat until T, then give Mayers, Blackwood, and Reefer license to play an ODI rate. Bat until T. So Jay, how much if you let Chanderpaul and Brathwaite bat until T, how much runs are you making in those 2 sessions? Even if they try to up the run rate, how many runs are we really making with those 2 at the crease? 120 max, which would take us to what? 340 by T. Yeah, okay, I can see your point. And then you tell Mayers, Blackwood, and Reefer to just do their thing. Supernova says, Tage has had a dream start to his career with only 1 score below 40. How long does this start give him grace period time? In my opinion, even if he fails in the next test of 2023, he goes to... Oh, yeah, Tage is in the team, full stop. Listen, and I'm going to get into Tage proper in the next 3 minutes or so. I'm going to talk on Tage proper. Tage is in the West Indies side now until pretty much the whole of 2024. And let me tell you why. Because Kieran Powell got a long run. John Campbell got a long run. Devon Smith got multiple runs. If those people can get all the runs that they got in the team without really doing anything, then Tage is a lock. Tage is a lock for the whole of 2023 and the whole of 2024. He's a lock in. And actually now is the perfect time for me to get into Tage because I want to touch on this. For those of you who are in the Caribbean Cricket Podcast Facebook group or anybody who's on Facebook in general in some of those West Indies fan pages, if you follow us on Twitter, you would have seen that I put up a tweet earlier today, which has caused a bit of a debate, particularly across in the Facebook groups, but I'm going to stand by it. In January 2020, I tweeted on our Carib Cricket handle. This is back in the days when we only had like 400 followers, maybe 600. I tweeted back in January 16th, 2020, I'm paraphrasing, somebody can bring it up on the screen or whatever, but I tweeted, how long will it take West Indies to call up Tage Narayan Chanderpaul? There isn't a better opener waiting in the wings than Tage Narayan Chanderpaul. He should be called. And then I said, yes, his strike rate is appalling, but he's the only opener in the region who clearly puts a value on his wicket. That was 2020, January 16th, 2020, before pandemic had even hit. I was saying Tage should get called up at some point in the very near future. Now, I've had a few people come for me since I dropped that on Facebook and I dropped it on Twitter. And the point that they've made when they've come for me is Tage wasn't ready to play Test cricket at that point. And you know what? I hear that. But I think you've misunderstood the point of me bringing that tweet up. When I made that tweet or posted that tweet on January the 16th, 2020, that was me saying that I had already acknowledged that Tage Narayan had the potential to already be in and around the West Indies Test squad. Please tell me why West Indies selectors waited until we went to Australia in December 2022 to bring man into the team. And the Tage Narayan Chanderpaul situation for me is a perfect microcosm of how we are so bad at selection in the West Indies. I don't want to hear anybody tell me Tage wasn't ready 2 years ago. That's not my point. Our pool, our talent pool in the region isn't wide enough for us to not pick players based on potential. Let me repeat that line again in case you can't hear what I'm saying. Our talent pool is not wide enough to not or ignore players based on potential. If you are waiting for players to post up, and I'm talking about batters purely here at this moment in time, if you are waiting for players to post up score after score after score after score after score to justify them getting into the West Indies side, we're going to be waiting until Jesus comes back to life. That's how long we're going to be waiting, because nobody puts up real significant numbers in West Indies cricket. No one does. No one puts up real consistent significant numbers in West Indies cricket, and they haven't been doing that for about 20 years. So you can't come to me with numbers and say, well, this man deserves a chance now and this man deserves a chance now, because if we're being honest, numbers don't mean nothing in West Indies cricket. I mean, sorry, that's harsh. Numbers mean something, but it's your ability to also spot potential talent that counts just as much as the numbers. That's what I'm on. So when I made that comment about Tage 3 years ago, and I said, man needs to hurry up and come into the West Indies side, that, yeah, he had, and the thing is, Tage's numbers at that point were about as good as any other opener in the region. But the difference that I saw with Tage was I clearly saw that Tage had the sound, basic skills that said to me 3 years ago, should he get to the Test side, he has the foundational skills to excel at the highest level. Now, what I want a selector to tell me is, how did I notice that before they did? And I didn't need numbers to tell me nothing. I just noticed it early doors. So why were we waiting 3 years? In that 3 years, Campbell came and failed. Powell came back and failed. I think even Devon Smith got a chance. No, I don't think Devon did, actually. I think Devon got a chance just before that and failed. Even Jeremy Solazano got a chance. He got licked down, so didn't get to play the match. But I'm fairly certain Jeremy would have struggled as well. This is why I'm saying to people, you can't just throw numbers out and say, pick this next man. If the next man doesn't have legitimate potential, that your eyes, the eye test is key, you know. If the eye test can't also back up the numbers, don't pick the man. Don't pick the man. And this is why we'll forever be in this dilemma about someone like Nicholas Pooran, because someone like me has been calling for 4 years, 3 years. You just have to pick Pooran anyway. You can't wait for Pooran to play first-class cricket to prove he belongs at the Test level. The eye test should already have told you that Pooran has the basic set of skills to take a gamble on. Pooran's 26, 27 years old. Brandon King is 28 years old. By the time we're ready to take a gamble on those players, they're going to be in their 30s, or they'll never play Test cricket. This is all up. You can't wait on numbers in West Indies cricket to just pick players, because our pool's not big enough to just wait on numbers. The performance statistics at the highest level show that the numbers aren't the be-all and end-all when it comes to picking West Indies cricketers. So big up Tage and Chanderpaul, big up Brandon. About long overdue. This is what I wanted to see when he went to Zimbabwe. Collect your maiden Test match century and kick off your career proper now. Big up Brandon. I expect him to stay in the team for a long. I mean, if people are saying who's Brandon, that's what they call Tage. I expect him to stay in the team for a long time now. But this is, for me, this is overdue. And here's the joke of it all. Here's the biggest joke. If John Campbell hadn't had his whereabouts violation, Tage wouldn't be playing right now. This is the biggest joke of it all. John would have gone to Australia and John would have opened. And only if John had failed in Australia might you have seen Tage and Chanderpaul playing in Zimbabwe. So let's just remember that as well. As much as we're all clapping now, going, oh, well done, Tage Chanderpaul, he's playing through luck alone, people. He's not playing through an actual pick. He just benefited from luck because of Campbell's whereabouts violation. And if that isn't an indictment of the system and how we select players, then what is? How about that? Let me take a sip of water for that one. And now let me just finish on this point as well, because some people will still say, now, Mash, you're talking foolishness. How about this? He might be injured at this moment in time, but how many first-class matches did Jayden Seales play before he got into the West Indies side? Come on, anybody in the chat. How many first-class matches did Jayden Seales play before he got into the West Indies senior side? Help me, people. I know, I'm waiting for someone to answer it. First person, go in the chat. How many did he play? Matt Pryor says none. Matt Pryor says none. Seales played none. Pink Spaghetti says 2. Supernova says 1. Right? The only first-class matches that Jayden Seales played before making the West Indies test side is he went to New Zealand. Remember, they took him on potential alone. They saw what he did in the Under-19 World Cup and took him to New Zealand. And those games we played where it was like West Indies A versus New Zealand A, that's the only first-class matches that Jayden Seales played, and then he got called up straight into the West Indies senior side. So when people say to me, but numbers, but numbers. So why did Jayden Seales get in our side, people? Because a man saw with his eyes, this guy is good. We do not have a wide enough pool to wait for players like Jayden Seales to put up numbers in first-class cricket. If you can see a man is good, you pick a man. And guess what? When you pick a man, that doesn't mean he has to play. You pick a man to just be in the squad. To be in the squad and feel what it's like to be in and around it at the highest level. Play a couple of tour games. That's why before the Zimbabwe series, I'd said for so long, take a couple of inexperienced youths to this Zimbabwe tour. Let them play a tour game. Let them see what it's like at the international level, because their time will come at some point. So you pick a youth on potential and bring them through to experience the test setup. That's the position we're in as West Indies. Can't be waiting for numbers to justify things. You also have to go on what your eyes are telling you. You hear me? So that's what I just wanted to kind of say about Tage, because today isn't just about Tage Narayan's maiden ton. It's a big ton. It's a big knock 'em. Big up Tage, big up Guyana, big up Shiv, big up the Chanderpauls. All of that. But when you look at Tage's knock, I think you also need to look at the bigger issues that it raises about selection within the Caribbean, and maybe there's a lesson for us to learn from what Tage has done. Maybe there's a lesson to learn. Now maybe if you want me to now give you a names, for example, right? I'm going to give you a name. Let me give you a next youth. So it's the 5th of February, 2023. I'm telling you now that Alec Athenaze should be called up to the West Indies test squad within the next year and a half. Anytime within the next year and a half. He won't be, but I'm telling you he should be. And I don't want anyone to come to me now and say, but Mash, his numbers don't really justify that. I'm telling you that based on my Caribbean Cricket Podcast eye test, I've already seen enough to know that Alec Athenaze should be in and around the test squad and be getting some experience, because he's ready. He has the raw fundamentals to play for the West Indies in test cricket. Remember, I said this on the 5th of February, 2023, and come back to me when he finally plays the West Indies and see how long it took for someone else to realize that. If there's anybody from Cricket West Indies, like on a burner account in this chat, I'm ready to become a selector. Just send me send me an email. I'm ready. Whenever you need me, I'm ready. Anyways, you lot must not thought I was going to be on one today. But so other than that, obviously we have to big up Craig. We have to big up Craig as well. Craig, what a fantastic year he had last year. Made the ICC Test Team of the Year. The West Indies captaincy has absolutely been the best thing that could have happened for Craig. He's led from the front. I think he has thrived on being captain. And he started 2023 in the same vein of form. Craig, it's going to be interesting to see. Craig's only 30 and a young 30 at that. It's going to be very interesting to see when Craig retires in like 5 years' time or something. It's going to be very interesting to see how many runs he retires with and where we see him in the. And some of you are gonna say that I'm being blasphemous here, but hear me out when I say this next line. It's going to be very interesting to see where we rank Craig in the pantheon of West Indies greats. Hear me out. Hear me out. Before you cuss and say, how dare you mention Craig Brathwaite's name in the pantheon of West Indies test match greats. Hear me out. Craig has exclusively played his cricket in an era when we were horrible at this format of cricket. And despite that, in the context of being an opener, he arguably is the old, you could say since his debut in when did he debut? 2014, 2012. I think it was like 18, 19 when he debuted. You could argue that since Craig debuted in like 2012, Gale was on his way out. So Gale only played for an extra year and a half. Shiv left 3 years later. Darren Bravo called Cameron an Egypt and kind of left as well. Since Craig's debut to now, no one can touch him in West Indies cricket in terms of consistency, in terms of being viewed as by other test match teams as a genuine good, I don't want to, great seem strong, but good to great test match player. But in the context of who he is playing for. If Craig played for a better test match side, he'd probably have a better average because he wouldn't have to lead from the front all the goddamn time. Do you know what I mean? And Pink Spaghetti rightly says here, I know there's been lots of comments, people, but I've been waffling too much to really bring up all the comments. But Pink Spaghetti says here, yeah, 2018 to 2020 was rough. It was rough to the point where I was one of the ones saying, boy, we better drop Craig because that's how rough the period of form was. But since then, he's battled back and had a career renaissance. So he's not had a like poor period of or a poor stretch at any point in time. Yeah, that period was poor for him, but it's come through the other side of it. So I think in the context of our cricket, modern cricket, Craig Brathwaite is as good as it gets. And yes, some will look at his average and go, Mash, he only averages 36. Like, come on, we can't call somebody who averages 36 a great. But I can call him a great in the context of what we've been doing for the last 10 years. And he's the only batter I can call in the last 10 years who has shown anything. I'd probably say Darren Bravo as well in the early part of that. He's the only batter I can call who has shown anything that other test match nations regard as legitimate, top level, consistent quality. And if he played in a better team, he'd have a better average. But this team, this test match team, is very much in Craig's mold, in so much as, well, boy, we're just going to try battle. Where we might not have the ability, but we're just going to try battle as much as we possibly can. So we have to hail up Craig Brathwaite. I'm not saying he's the greatest captain West Indies have ever had, but we have to hail him up said same way and appreciate the... So he took the captaincy in that Bangladesh series. So since he's taken the captaincy, we won away in Bangladesh. I'm just talking about the positives here. We won away in Bangladesh, which was the first time since 2013. We drew at home with Pakistan. We drew at home versus Sri Lanka. We beat England at home. We beat Bangladesh at home. I think that's it so far in terms of the positive results under his captaincy. And in that said same time, we've seen the emergence of Bonner, the emergence of Mayers, the emergence of Josh De Silva, the emergence of Jaden Seals. So I think this team is very much in his mold in terms of, I'm not saying it's his team, but I think it's a team built in his mold in terms of we're going to try and be as competitive as we possibly can be. Listen, that's enough of my waffle for today. Let me just go into comments now and see what people are saying. It's 11 o'clock at night in England, you know. Some people had a couple of questions. Let me see. Oh, by the way, there's 174 of you in this live, you know. I didn't even realize. Someone tell me how many likes there are. If there's not over 100 likes, nah, you lot have done me dirty once again, you know. Somebody who can tell me how many likes, tell me how many likes there are. I bet there's 100. Where's that question I saw somebody throw out? I've probably gone way past it. Someone said, what about Nandu? Early doors for Nandu. Yes, I know he cracked a century for Guyana in the first round of the regional championship. And obviously, a lot was spoken about him at under 19 level for West Indies. I want to see a bit more from Nandu before I start calling his name. So, wicked. I mean, he's only 19, great knock. But let me see how he goes in the remaining rounds of the West Indies Championship before I start calling his name. So, I'm a bit... The talent's there. I see some talent, but I'm cautious at this moment in time. Let's see. 49 likes. Yep, I've been done dirty. Right, over to you lot. Questions. You know what? Actually, you know what? Let me put the link. Let me put the link in the live. If anybody wants to come on and talk their piece, you've got... I'm going to do 10 minutes. I'm going to do 10 minutes of a live calling show. Let's turn this over to the people. Okay, links coming in the live. If you want to come on, 10 minutes max, people. I've got work tomorrow. It's 11 o'clock at night in the UK. So 10 minutes max. Whoever wants to come in and talk their shit, press the link and in you come. It's just gone in the chat now. Right. 10 minutes, people. I'm going to set a timer as well. Gio's in the background. Let's bring Gio on and let's see what Gio wants to say. Make sure you're getting yourselves in early, people, because you see when that 10-minute timer is up, I'm just locking off the live. I'm not even saying bye. I'm just gonna lock off the live. Right, let's bring Gio on.
Hello, Max. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got two questions. Well, really one comment and then another question. The first comment I would like to say, I think the pitches so far has been pretty decent, and I like the one that's really in Grenada. And I got to say, I appreciate West Indies for producing such quality first-class game. And then my question is, what do you think about the prospect for Milius? Because I know you identify him since 2021 or 2020.
So let's talk about the pitches first. We have to... Okay, this is interesting because you see, when... One of the things I would say is the last first class season when people were making runs, I remember that I spoke to Jimmy Adams about that first class season. Jimmy might not appreciate me saying this, but I remember I spoke to Jimmy, and Jimmy had said that the decks for last year's first class season were very flat. I think where was the competition played? It was played in Trinidad and Antigua, and he said, "Boy, those pitches were flat mash," and he said they were run-making machines. I think in Trinidad is the point he was making. So there was always that thing in the back of my mind where it's like, okay, some people have scored runs and we should hail them up. But if the pitches were as flat as Jimmy was saying, then how valuable are those runs? But then on the flip side, regardless of last year and looking at this year, and I want to see what you see. I want to see what you say about this, Gio. I would argue that we have to create flat pitches in the Caribbean, because if not flat, but flat enough where these players can learn how to bat and secure their fundamentals. So it's a bit of a gilt-edged sword. We can't make them too flat, but at the same time, if we don't, how are these players going to learn to bat in general and know how to construct an innings and make big runs? So that there is that in the back of my mind. And to answer your final question about Milius, the only thing I'd say about Milius is Milius, as I understand it, paid out of his own money to fly to England to work with Toby Radford, the former West Indies batting coach, to hone his skill set. That's great. And that shows that Milius is dedicated and wants to improve, and I assume wants to represent West Indies and so on and so forth. But my only concern is, does that say something then about our developmental system, that a guy who paid money out of his own pocket to go and work on his game comes back to the Caribbean, scores big runs, the standout runs in the first round, 192. I think that's the 4th highest regional score, maybe 5th highest in a very of all time, possibly. I think, right? Is that an indictment of our system? Is that there's just that there is that to just wonder and think about? What do you think about those things, Gio?
Well, the funny part about it is that what a lot of people don't realize is right. Well, the pitches for like actual like cricket, if you're watching Australia, especially their grade cricket, their development cricket, or even their test cricket, and New Zealand, they're kind of really flat. If you want to really be 100%, like a lot of these pitches are flat. And then the reason why a lot of teams that struggle that go there is because Australia, they know the pitch is kind of flat, so they bat first, pile up the runs, and put you on a scoreboard pressure. Because I'm not saying that they don't got good bowlers, but I'm just saying like a lot of these pitches are very flat, and that's how England developed their white ball team, because they make their pitches flat, so it teaches players how to bat. Because say for example, normally the pitches are very rough. A lot of players they get frustrated, so they try to slog their way to make runs. But if the pitches and the bat is coming nice to the ball, you learn how to play proper cricket shots.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And like I say, if I had to pick, I'd rather the pitches stay flatter than. Listen, anything's got to be better than what it's been in the kind of previous decade where spinners are just dominating, and not even necessarily world-class spinners, just anybody who's got any level of ability is just dominating the batters. So if it means we have to go completely in the other direction where batters can actually make runs, then so be it. If it means the bowlers in our region have to work a bit harder to take wickets, so be it, because then the best bowlers will actually show up. Because right now the weakness in our region is more related to the batting than it is to do with the bowling. So we need to create pitches which enable batters to improve their game. Listen, Gio, I'm going to bring on the next person, just so that everybody does get a go. But thank you for coming through, yeah?
Thank you.
No. Yes, Mr. Lover, what you saying? Shaba.
Good day, Marsh. Good day, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations to Brathwaite and Tisner Ryan for the opening stand, surpassing Chris Gale and Darren Ganga. And I hope they can go past the legendary Haynes and Greenwich at 298 tomorrow in the first session. Also, I want to say that what would it have been, or how would we have been right now if we did not lose those 89 overs?
Good point. I think if we hadn't lost the overs, we would have declared by now. I don't know how many runs we would have made, but I think we would have declared by now. I'd like to think that we would have been, 2 days, 89 overs. Even a conservative estimate of 89 overs is another 220 runs, even with our slow batting. So that would make us 440 at the end of day. Okay, you wouldn't declare on 440, but I mean, somebody would have got out, and then some of the quicker batters would have come in. So I think if we hadn't lost the overs, you're looking at a 500 plus score. We're declaring, and we're giving ourselves 3 days to sort it out and win the match. I guess the question to you, Mr. Lover, is: do you think we can win it do you think we can still win this match with rain on the potential horizon?
I think we can. The best thing to do is to go hard tomorrow morning. If not, go into the second session after lunch. If we lose an early wicket, I think we should send in either Kyle Myers or Jermaine Blackwood to up the run rate to give us a better chance of reaching 450, as I predicted for our declare rate.
When would you declare?
If we make 450, if we don't make 450, probably by lunch, we declare and put in Zimbabwe to bat and try to get a 2-1.
Hold on, by lunch, you mean tea, right?
Well, it's ticklish, but with the weather on the horizon, I would say if we can't get the 250 and lose both Craig and Tage early, just declare by lunch and go for the 2-for-1 if we can.
Okay, interesting. How do you think? How? What instructions should Tage and Craig be given though? Do you think they've got a game that allows them to? I mean, I've seen Tage play some T20 innings in minor league cricket in the United States, so it's not. I think there's a myth that Tage can't play quickly. My issue is, can Craig play quickly? So, what are the instructions for Tage and how long do you tell Tage and Craig to just bat normally? And at what point do you say to them, you know what, accelerate, and if you're out, you're out?
Okay, for the first hour, go at it as usual, and then for the next half an hour, maybe 45 minutes before lunch, try up it between that if you can. If not, just play it regular until lunch.
Okay. We'll see how they approach it. So last question before I bring in Demo. I can see Demo in the background. So are you saying that you wouldn't bring Reefer in next? You'd bring in Blackwood or Mayers? I think Reefer's perfect to bring in next, given what he did in the CPL and the 60. I think Reefer's got a game to be able to go quick. If anything, Reefer should be happy that he's going to get licensed to just come out and play normally. That's probably less pressure than being like, boy, I've got to prove that I can stay in this squad. Go on. I
do agree with you somewhat, Mash, but if you go on history, if you look back to the Bangladesh series that we won with Karen has made a double century, I think this would have been his ideal condition to at least go at it again, to try get quick ones, to get a quick 100 or so. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I'm on mute. That's interesting. I would be surprised. Then again, no. When Tage got his century, I thought I saw Mayers padded up. So maybe you're right. You know, I need to go back and look at the highlights. You may well be right that they'll mix up the batting order, but it'll be interesting to see all the same. Listen, Mr. Lover, I'm going to bring Demo through because I want to lock this off in the next 15 minutes. Let me bring Demo through to get his say as well.
Bail up Demo.
Yeah. Yes, Demo, how you doing?
Yo, oh God, Mash, big up. So I'm not sure if you have other people waiting, so I'll try to be quick, right? First of all, the disrespect. Craig Brathwaite is a great bro. He is a great, and I mean everybody who knows me on Facebook and everywhere else on any other platform, that's my guy. He has what? Before Tage got that century, he was the one that got 12. The 12 centuries by an opener from West Indies is, apart from Chris Gayle, well, after Chris Gayle, has been, Craig Brathwaite. For me, he's a great, not just the fact that he's our stalwart in a rough time, but the fact that he soaks up so many deliveries, that takes a lot of concentration to do. And for me, he's a great. All right. So that's the first thing. Again, before I close off on Craig, he also can pick up the pace when necessary, because we saw him against, was it Bangladesh at home? When he smoked that 50, like a real quick fire 50. You've never seen him bat so aggressively. Mind you, he was batting with John and stuff, but I mean, he can up the run rate when required, because we've seen it done before. Secondly, I want to big up, I know this is a West Indies thing, but I want to big up Raheem Cornwall for continuing to dominate, continuing to prove that he deserves to be in the team, and just continuing to show up the selectors. He's just a special talent, so he needs to get the credit that he deserves. And my final thing is my question that I'm going to leave with. Should we be excited about this kind of stuff against this Zimbabwe team going into South Africa? Is this supposed to motivate us? I mean, Craig basically warmed up with a century against these guys, came back again and did the same thing here. They have 5 debutants in the team. The bowling, they just look toothless. They didn't offer anything, and South Africa is not going to be anything like this. So should we actually have any motivation from this going into the South Africa series? And what do you make of? I don't know, because I didn't watch it from the start, so I don't know what the reason was for Bonner not playing, if he's injured or whatever. So you can tell me after I get off. If he wasn't injured, what do you make of him not playing in this game leading up to South Africa, where more than likely he's going to be picked? After he got hit in Australia, you'd want to give him some confidence, going into that series. So I don't know if he's injured or whatever. So you let me know, and I'll let other people come on.
Well, you can't go. You can't go just like that. So, people, first things first. We're here. We're here trying to celebrate 221 for none, and Demo came through to block up the vibes. Man, broke up the vibes and said it's just Zimbabwe.
No, not just Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe with 5 debutants and no Raza and these guys.
Listen, but the thing is, I'm glad you've made the point, because we do have to be real. Because I listened to a live with some Zimbabwean pundits before the series, and I think it was a Twitter Spaces actually, and they were making the point you were making. They were like, "There's too many debutants, not too many," but they effectively were saying, "Well, boy, this is as inexperienced as it gets for us. Like, yeah, we've got some talented players, but we're just returning to Test cricket, and we're throwing in a whole bag of man to play West Indies. West Indies pretty much have their first choice team. They're a settled unit, so they weren't going into it expecting to be ultra competitive." Now, somebody, before I press record on this, somebody sent me a tweet saying, because we were obviously on Twitter, we're just bigging up Chanderpaul and Brathwaite, and they were like, "Well, it's only Zimbabwe." But here's my thing. This is how I counter your point. And some people will take offense to this, but I counter the point by saying, "But we're only West Indies." And hear me out when I say that. We aren't anybody to be assuming we're significantly better than anybody else away from home. Away from home. If this was West Indies versus Zimbabwe in West Indies, I'm expecting us to knock them over quick time and treat them with disrespect, because we're in our own conditions. But away from home, we rarely win. What series have we won away from home? What series? I'm trying to think. We've beaten Bangladesh. We've beaten Afghanistan. Who's the last team we beat away from home who weren't Bangladesh or Afghanistan or Zimbabwe themselves? I can't. Someone get in the chat right now and tell me who's the last. I'm trying to think. Who's the last team we beat away from home who wasn't one of them three? It can't. I don't know. I can't.
No, I have no idea.
I need to go back into my stats to find the last team we beat away from home in a series that wasn't Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, Afghanistan. So the reason why I'm saying that, Demon, you're right, by the way, that this is a weakened Zimbabwe. But do you get my point, that this is our level? To be honest,
I mean, I get that, but I'm saying, the form we're in Test matches coming into this, like we have been somebody. You get me? It's not like we've been dreadful leading up to this. Like, we've actually beaten England and all the things that you mentioned earlier. So we've actually been in good test form. I mean, I'm not going to count Australia because everybody goes there and lose. So I'm just saying, like, we've been really playing well in Test cricket leading into this. So I would be expecting to beat Zimbabwe regardless of who we are overall. But just that 2022 leading into 2023, we've been really, really good.
So let me ask you this then. Say we don't win this test, and let's say it's at worst it's a draw. Would you see that as a disappointment, or would you accept that, well, boy, the rain mashed it up still, so we were always up against it?
Yeah, I'll definitely give it over to the conditions messing up the victory, because overall I think we would have won this game on a canter. And judging from just the warm-up games as well, I think, like I said, the form that a lot of these guys are coming on from 2022 into 2023, and they just carried on into this season. I mean, Craig has been in good form. He came in the warm-up game, he got 100, retired. I think Tage got some runs, Da Silva made 100, and all of these things. So I expected us to win if the rain didn't affect the game. I don't know about pushing on to get a victory now, but we'll see how that goes. Expected to win the series there. So that's the first question. So you need to answer the rest.
Okay, well, I'm just bringing this up because this goes to the
Yeah.
point you were making. So Adrian says,
Okay.
I don't even think Reefer will get a play against South Africa. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Demo. I did I can't remember if it was a live or I think it was a live, where I looked at who was going to play in the first test. So it was about 24 hours before the first day. And I was like, right, let's do a quick live. And I took people through my selection thinking as to who would play the first test. To show you how irrelevant Reefer was in my thinking, I didn't even call his name at any point in the live. Because honestly, Demo, I listened back to it and I think I'd forgotten that he was even in the squad. Because I never called his name once, right? Now, that's also, but that's not out of disrespect to Reefer. He never came into my thinking that he would get a play, right? Even if Bonner was going to get dropped, I had Devon Thomas to be the one to get the play if Bonner got the drop, right? And I had this discussion with a couple of people in a WhatsApp conversation earlier on. I won't call no names, but I had this discussion with a couple of people in a WhatsApp conversation earlier today. And I'm just going to say this bluntly. There can only be two reasons I can think of how Reefer got a play. Reason number one is that Reefer played against Bangladesh at number 3, and he didn't do well. Like it wasn't a good it wasn't a good series.
Nope.
We went to Australia, and obviously he got injured in Australia. I don't know if people remember. He played the warm-up game and he got injured against
while he was fielding
11. Yeah, he got injured. And what I don't know is would they have played him in Australia if he hadn't got injured? Now, obviously, Bonner started the first test match against Australia and then got licked down and concussion replacement. But what we don't know is who was scheduled to play in that Australia series. Was it going to be Reefer? We don't know that, right? Now, so reason number one why I think Reefer's now playing against Zimbabwe is, have they decided that Reefer didn't get a proper run? So therefore, they've said, well, boy, you were supposed to get your run, and we want to still give you that run. It's Zimbabwe, so in you come. That's reason number one. Reason number two, they may have looked at the lineup for Zimbabwe and said, right, Reefer's the only bowler who offers left arm. I know, you're laughing already, but I'm just trying to find logical understanding.
I know.
So in my head, I was like, right, Reefer offers left arm seam. Have they decided that they want the extra bowling? They believe that Reefer's angle with the left arm seam can exploit some kind of weakness in the Zimbabwean batting lineup. But here's why that reasoning doesn't stand up for me. We're already playing Roach, Moulty, Joseph, Holder, Chase, Mayers. Reefer's the 7th bowler. So that can't, when I was trying to weigh it up, I was like, but that can't make no sense. Because we've already got 6 bowlers in the side. And even if he was getting picked for that, he'd be lower down the order. He wouldn't come in at number 3 then if he was being picked for his left arm seam.
Yeah, because even in prior series, he hardly gets the ball in prior series with those players. He doesn't.
So then I said, is Bonner injured? But nothing has come out. I've asked a question.
Wow.
No one said to me, well, boy, Bonner's got an injury still. That's why he's out. And again, I say that same point to you was, even if Bonner was injured, so how comes Devon Thomas hasn't come into the equation then, right? So this is the last reason I've got to give you, Debo. The only other reason that it can be, it must be Bayesian bias. That's it. That's all I got. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Yo, you know what the funny thing is? I'm honestly working with that last answer. Like, listen, Craig was like, listen, Bayesian, I'll use him, man. I'll use him because he didn't make any runs in the warm-up game either. I don't know what it is. And the weird thing, when Devon Thomas went to Australia, he actually made some runs. So I was figuring that, listen, Devon Thomas is obviously the prime candidate if you're not going to even play Bonner or whatever. I'm shocked to see Reefer in the team. I don't know, man. Bayesian bias is the only explanation for me. There's no other reason.
If there's anyone in the chat, I'm not coming for Barbados. That's not the point of what I'm trying to make. I was just trying to logically work it out in my head, and that was the last thing that came into my head because I don't understand otherwise. I can't find any other cricketing logic to explain it. So
there's none. There's none, bro. There's none. So yeah, you'll see.
But all that said, I hope he makes runs. I hope
Of course.
he makes some big runs, and I hope he causes a selection dilemma. Because say he does, let's say tomorrow now he comes in number 3 and let's say he smokes 65 off 23 balls, right? Arguably, you then say, well, boy, the man has to play the next test. And then that then means that you go to South Africa and all of a sudden now, selection dilemma. Because
Yeah.
do you see what I mean? But if I was Bonner, I would be looking at the situation thinking, well, boy, I haven't even really done anything to deserve to be dropped. I'm averaging 38. How am I out the side? That's what. So I would, if I was Bonner, I would feel away, unless I've been told by Andre Coley and Haynes and that lot, you're coming in for South Africa. Unless he's been told that, and this was
which for me wouldn't make any sense, because you'd want him to play against a weaker opposition to get his confidence back, because he got hit in Australia.
Exactly.
He's going to face those bowlers in South Africa, wrapping up 145 plus 2. So you'd want him to bat some more against weaker opposition to go into the South Africa series a lot more confident. So even that would make any sense. But it's West Indies. We're used to this kind of stuff. We just have to hope, you know. All right, boys, big up yourself.
That was my attempt to try and answer it, though, you know, Demo. But listen, there was someone in the background, but obviously you and I were chatting too long, so they said bun this, and they've gone.
I tried to leave, bro. I tried.
You're gonna be the last person. You're the last person to come on the live. And listen, people, before I wrap this up, so Demo's the last. I'll try and bring another live tomorrow, depending on the match situation. Depends if we get any real play. But I like this. So Demo was the one who said, "Am I going to do a call-in?" So if Demo hadn't said it, it wouldn't even have crossed my mind. So big up Demo.
I'm a voice of the people, Mash. They love the lives. They want to come and this is therapy, bro. They want to come and vent. You know what I mean?
But for people who are in the States or the Caribbean, this is why I did it at 10:30, by the way, because although it's a bit late for me, I think this is the latest I can probably do it to make sure that people are probably in evening time in the States and the Caribbean, so you can come through, you know, and get a chance to have your say. So look out for day 3, people, depending on what happens, and we'll try to chew that one up and have some more conversations. Thank you for the 200 and something of you that were in the live. 007 says it was 220 at one point, so big up everyone who's in it. Before you go, if you can, press like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff, people. Dima, I'm probably going to take off and close this one off.
You're going to take off?
No, I'm going to take you off the screen and then close this one off.
Yeah. Big up everybody. Like, share, and subscribe as usual.
Yes. Big up Sports Frenzy, by the way, people. You see Demo's at there. make sure you go. If Demo does it before he leaves, go follow Demo's Sports Frenzy. He's doing his own thing as well. But people, thank you for coming through. That was an hour in the end. I said to myself, this is only going to be half an hour, and then I'm going to bed so I can get off of work. You lot mash up my vibes again. But thank you for coming through. Thank you for sharing. We'll do a live call in hopefully tomorrow, depending on what the day 3 situation is saying. Do press like before you go. Share this with anybody who you think would like to listen back to this. And we rally. A couple of you said in the chat, by the way, where can I watch it? So last time, if you're in the Caribbean, it's on Flow Sport app. If you're in the UK and other places, it's on, just go to icc.tv and create an account, and you can just watch it on the ICC website. If you're in India or Asia, it's on an app called Fan Code. And that's all I know. So if anybody else knows where else people can watch it, just drop that into the conversation so people can find the show. Somebody asked me where the highlights are. If you at me on Twitter, I'll send you the link to where you can watch the highlights of the day's play. But thank you everybody for coming through. Press like on the way out, and hopefully I can drop another live call-in show tomorrow morning. Peace, people, and let's rally round the West Indies as always. Later.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.